Welcome everyone to a new series we are calling Turn the Page Tuesdays. Um, Turn the Page Tuesdays is comprised of my two really great friends, Brady Keith and Canton Roberts, right? All right, perfect. Uh, and so basically, what we do is every week we take a comic book character from no matter what comic book series it is or where they're from, and we basically do kind of a character study over them. And it's a very this series is going to be very informational, and hopefully, whenever you guys go to watch a new series or read a new series, you guys will be able to be equipped with some nice little knowledge before you guys jump into it. So yeah, as we kind of begin, I guess we'll kind of start around to establish what characters we will be doing. So I will be covering Sinister Mark from Invincible.
And this is Brady Keith, and I will be covering Cooper Cohen, aka Spider Man, from the Spider Society and other comic series.
And I'm Canton Roberts, and I'll be discussing Spawn, aka Al Simmons.
Yeah, so I will kick us off first with Sinister Invincible. So Marcus Sebastian, or Mark Grayson, also known as Invincible or Sinister Mark, is a supporting antagonist in the Image comic series known as Invincible. He was among 20 of the alternate Mark Graysons recruited by Angstrom Levy to ruin his home's Dimensions invincible reputation after he disfigured him horrendously and killed all of his counterparts under the promise of him granting every Mark access to new dimensions to conquer. So Levy would prove to not respect the deal, as he would be betrayed by the 8 surviving Marks as soon as he got the chance by stranding them in a wasteland version of Earth. So during this time, this particular sinister version of Mark would resort to anything that would ensure his survival, including cannibalizing his other counterparts.
Okay. We might not be able to put that in there because it's a sensitive topic, so we'll probably have to discuss
Okay.
that with Parsons.
All right. Cool. So a little is known about his past, but it's implied that most of his life had been similar to the mainstream other Marks, and so yeah. But basically, uh, he would go on to kind of take a darker path and eventually join the Viltrum Empire. So I'll kick it off to Brady and kind of help him, or he's going to establish his character's backstory as well.
So we're going to pick up with Cooper Cohen, who is a Spider Man variant, but goes by the name Web Weaver. Some of you may know Web Weaver from the Boys comics, but this is a different Web Weaver. He was a high school student who had a crush on his classmate Peter Parker. While on a field trip, Cooper pushed Peter out of the way from being bitten by the radioactive Spider-Man that all the other Spider-Man and women are bit by, which resulted in him gaining the Spider-Man / superhuman abilities. And the two had become very close, and they were like very close since that happened and him saving him. And then on prom night, when Cooper's date stood him up, Peter went in as his bro date and sort of like helped him just be like a friend there. And then later, after they graduated, Cooper had saw Peter's very good photography stuff with the Daily Bugle, so he encouraged him and stuff to pursue full-time photography, which then put Peter in as a runway fashion photographer. So that's kind of his backstory. So I'm gonna kick it off to Canton hologram lover Roberts, right?
Yes.
Now.
Yes. So Spawn, aka Al Simmons, was a government merc, bounty hunter, until he got betrayed by one of his friends and died. Where he would then sell his soul to Lord Evil, for lack of a better term, or to one of the many Lord Evils in his universe. He would come back as Spawn, where he would get these cool powers, get a beam like from his hands. He could teleport, regenerate, but every time he uses his powers, he loses his power level and he loses energy. And once he's depleted, he will become like part of that big evil. And so he, in his like 5 years after his death, and he goes to visit his widow, Wanda Blake, who has a baby and has married his former best friend, Tommy Fitzgerald. Now, it's very tragic for Spawn because when he was alive, he couldn't have a baby. And that's very bad. Or not very bad, but very sad for him. And yeah, I think that's the backstory of Spawn. I mean, he meets up with the Violator, who's a fellow Spawn like himself, but can turn into this white monster. That's pretty cool. Pass. I pass.
Yeah, so moving into back to Sinister Mark, one of his biggest appearances would be during the Invincible War, where he was approached by Angstrom Levy to aid him in ruining the current or the main Invincible's reputation. And in exchange, he would basically expand his empire across the universe. So later on, during this kind of team up, Sinister would go on to fight Oliver Grayson, who basically he kind of sees as a lesser Viltrumite due to him being only half one, and then during his reign during the war. He would then fully decimate an entire city before being called to regroup by Angstrom on top of the Grayson family's home. Sinister Mark points out how he hates going back in there, and only for the Masked Mark to reply that not every one of them had basically murdered their mother. And Angstrom Levy then would kind of make a presence and ask the evil Invincibles a last favor to bring the Dimensions Invincible to him so that way he can finish him off himself. However, Sinister Mark denies Angstrom's petition, arguing that his plan wasn't that legit, and basically it only would weed their numbers down to just 8. Angstrom was disappointed at the marks and decides to throw them into a wasteland dimension for them to basically rot. And during the second battle with Mark, they would go to that same wasteland, and basically they would team up to help the original Mark. By the time that the original Mark finds him, only 2 had survived. One would be Mohawk Mark and Sinister Mark himself. And so yeah, basically a lot of both versions of the Invincibles were very beaten up and basically had to survive to one another. So yeah, kind of going to I'm gonna go over to Brady and let him kind of do his thing on what's the superhero called? Webweaver. Yeah, so we're gonna go over to Webweaver.
Welcome back. We're gonna kicking back into Webweaver from the Spider-Man comic series. Now, Webweaver doesn't have as many appearances as Spawn or Sinister Mark, but he's still one of my favorite Spider-Mans because he's so different than all the other Spider-Mans. Like how I was saying earlier, he's one of the few like LGBTQ Spider-Men or women in comics. So that's a big standing out factor. He's a very, very different Spider-Man than any of the Peter Parker or Miles Morales, because he saves people, but he's more flashy is the easiest way to say it, because his job when he's not working as Web Weaver is a fashion designer. So his costume is very flowy. It's very black. It's got gold. There's it's white webbed patterns. It's a very gold mask. So he's a lot more fancier and different than other Spider-Mans. Like what I was saying, he doesn't have that many appearances. His first appearance was in Edge of Spider-Verse from October 2022. So he's a relatively new addition to the Spider-Verse. But his parents aren't ever really mentioned because of their homophobia. So he's kind of separated himself from his parents, and his parents aren't mentioned. And he lives with his aunts. He lives with his aunts, I can't remember their names right now, Lori and Mel, which is also very different, means we don't have an Uncle Ben style character. And also in this universe, as you may know, Silk, a very notorious vigilante in the Spider-Verse, is actually Albert Moon Jr., who is a man in this in Earth 71490, which is where Web Weaver is from, and they had a somewhat of a romantic thing, as Albert liked Web Weaver and Cooper liked Silk and Albert separately and stuff. So it's more of an interesting and fun character, and flashy and amazingly designed by the wonderful design creator Stevie Fox and Chris Annika. So that's kind of more on like the appearances and some more of the backstory on Cooper Cohen or Web Weaver. So I'm going to pass it back to Canson with Spawn.
So Spawn doesn't really have that much backstory other than what I just said, so we're going to move on to the villains for him. One of them is Billy Kincaid, who is a infamous, I should say, murderer, and very, how do I say the word, disturbed person. And meanwhile, while he is trying to attack Billy Kincaid, so are the police. And the police aren't really trusted by the government. There's these two main policemen called Twitch, and I forgot what the other one was called. But they want to put down Spawn. They want to take away all these like costume vigilantes and the murderers and everyone. And so Spawn, who right now is living in a homeless shelter of an alleyway. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. It's like an alleyway just filled with homeless people who are the only people that would really accept him. Goes on, tries to eat off Billy Kincaid, and Twitch and the other one, I forgot what his name was. Hold on. But the other policemen, they walk in and they find Billy Kincaid's corpse inside their office. And like, wow, this is pretty messed up, dude. It's pretty brutal. And so we think this could be that red-coated dude with the red cape. And Twitch, it's like, yeah, probably. Yeah, that's for Billy Kincaid. Nick?
Yeah, so going back to Sinister Mark, just kind of my wrapping thoughts here. So, kind of going into his overall design, according to the series creator, the original concept was that of kind of a zombified Mark, as an obvious homage to Robert Kirkman's previous work in the Marvel Zombies comics, which I think would go on to be like translated into the What If series. And yeah, so I really like his design. At first I wasn't really sure because his character has a cape, but I like the kind of transition into a more like it's a big combination between Omni-Man and Invincible with the cape, and also the use of black and yellow instead of blue and yellow, which kind of like gives it that more sinister-y feel to it. And a lot of his character work, I think, is really unique. Since, with like Mohawk Mark, you kind of already have a very flamboyantly evil character, but with Sinister Mark, he kind of diverts that into like a different kind of like evil, almost like to an anti-hero standard. But yeah, I really really loved the way that they did this character, and I'm really excited to see whether or not they translate this character well with the future like series. So yeah, I'm gonna hand it off to my friend Brady here.
So, kind of what Nick was doing with the wrapping thoughts and stuff. I'm gonna add a little bit more because Canton talked about his villains and stuff. But what I very much find interesting about the villains is he has a very like unique, I guess, villain in a way, because his main villains are Chameleon, Ant-Man, Morbius, Craven the Hunter, all the symbiotes like Rhino, Volturion, Grizzly, and Kingpin, like all the normal ones. But what was like my thing was I found it very interesting to have Ant-Man as a villain protagonist in this character, which, because honestly, I think Ant-Man is a better villain than he is a hero based off of the way his powers are and how much what his character backstory is. I feel like he would have been better as a villain, which would have also made him a really dangerous villain in the way he can shrink down really tiny and really mess some people up in a way. But he can also go really huge and giant and destroy multiple buildings. So I thought that was quite interesting. Kind of just like wrapping thoughts is like, he's a really cool concept of a Spider-Man. It's a very different concept. It's a fashion designer who's like literally only does this as like a side hobby that helps for like he helped for like 5 years as a Spider-Man before he was recruited into the Spider-Verse. But no, he was mainly doing fashion design and stuff. He was trying to compete against the rival fashion designing business of North Star, which I think that's more prominent in other things as a villain corporation, but I can't remember off the top of my head right now. But in general, Cooper Cohen, or Web Weaver, is just a really cool and interesting and different take on what Spider-Man means, and as Stanley says, anyone can be behind the mask, so you can leave your comments out of this. And we're going to pass this off to Canton to wrap us off and finish us up.
So the last bit on Spawn. A detail that I really like from the writers was that when Spawn was alive, he was an atheist. Like, he didn't believe in an afterlife. He just thought, after you're done, you're done. And then they kind of flip it on his head because, again, he gets awoken by the devil. And he's like, hey, want to buy a soul? You want to buy or you want to sell me your soul so you can go see your wife again? It's like, yeah. And so I like the detail that he has to flip his whole perspective on the afterlife around because he literally seen the afterlife itself. And if you're a fan of the artwork of comics or the inking, whatever, it was created by the artist was Tom McFarlane before 2000, so you know it's good. So, yeah, I think that's it for everyone. If we all have a few closing remarks.
Yeah, no, hopefully you guys like this kind of format. It's a little bit more formal, but I feel like it's also more informational, and it's kind of a little bit more organized than our normal shows, which kind of feels like crickets playing racquetball, But yeah, we would really love to see what your guys's, if you guys have any characters that you guys want us to cover. But yeah, anyways, guys, hope you all enjoy this podcast. Anything you guys want to leave us off with?
Like I said, when I finish off my last thing, anyone can be behind the mask, no matter your race, your shape, your size, how you identify.
Yeah.
You got
Yeah.
anything?
I mean, Spawn is pretty cool, so you should
Yeah.
probably read it. And
Yeah.
again, Todd McFarlane before 2000. Good
Yeah,
art.
before you started doing all those toys.
The Wolverine stuff.
All right. This is Turn the Page Tuesdays signing off.
Yeah, deuces.
Ooses.